All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Nice to see everyone in chat. Looks like people are piling in, which is nice to see. 32 over on Twitch and 150 on YouTube already. Incredible. YouTube community's been absolutely exploding lately, so great to see that. We got a lot to talk about tonight, everybody, so I hope you are buckled in. As you know, we did a stream. AMD 300 says, I got to point this out, says, the Grim, the legend, the man. Thank you very much, AMD. I appreciate that. You just boosted my confidence for tonight's stream. And I just realized I don't have my stream lights on. But anyway, obviously we're going to have some top of show announcements here. I'm sure all of you have seen in the channel description something about a giveaway. I'm going to talk about that. Don't worry. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. And so a couple top of show announcements. We're going to talk about the monthly report. We're going to talk about the new IAE information that just popped out today. And in addition to that, we are going to talk about things like the giveaway, of course, IEE schedule. So we're going to talk about specific manufacturer days in relation to that schedule. We're going to analyze the IAE video trailer. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the Perseus with that one. And then we're going to talk about the PU monthly report. As I said, we're going to talk about the Ironclad. We're going to talk about the Liberator. We're going to talk about a few things, okay? So it's a ship-focused show. If you like spaceships like I do, it's an exciting time. Why? Because we're heading into IAE, which is next to Invictus. It is the biggest ship-focused event for the year, with Invictus being a second. That's even over something like a Citizen Con, where Citizen Con is sort of focused on the game, its features, the future, and all that kind of stuff. IAE is all about spaceships. That's why you're watching Shipyard down here. You do see that we have our IAE branding down in the lower right-hand corner. I guess you could sort of consider this the first of our IAE coverage shows. So yeah, Squirrel, hello to you as well. Nice to see everyone in chat. Simon Wolf, Socially Confused, so many great people. Saw Bingo's name go by, VMXEO, so many great star jumpers in chat. So yeah, it's, as you all know, during Invictus and IAE, generally, I try to do pretty decent coverage throughout the events. I don't cover it maybe as in-depth as some content creators out there, but I try to cover the stuff that matters to me, and hopefully it matters to you. You could consider tonight the first sort of IAE-themed show. And going into next week, we're going to have, was it next week? Or sorry, the week before. It's a couple days before IAE starts. So I think on the 15th or something, I have an episode scheduled that'll be our IAE pre-show, which I'm sure we're going to have a lot more leaks by then to talk about. But we'll do our IAE pre-show, and then I'm going to have content scheduled throughout IAE that focuses on specific manufacturer days, okay? And we're going to get to that, okay? But you may see I have Artorias here next to me on the old screen. Art, are you there?
I'm here, brother.
Okay. As you all know, Art is the producer of the show, helps keep me in check, helps keep me organized. So he'll be here on voice when needed. And obviously, Art, I want to get your perspective on a few things, Perseus, especially being that you are especially excited for the Perseus yourself. And it will, and I think it'll be interesting to talk about how it will plug into the gameplay you do with your org. But first, before we get into that, I think we have to talk about sort of the first thing, and that is we got a giveaway to talk about, don't we? This is a pretty big one, everybody. I hope you're excited for it. Let me go ahead and get over to that window. We are going to talk about, I know the anticipation is killing you and killing me as well. We're here to talk about the Perseus giveaway. You see a QR code there on the screen. In addition, I'm now activating a chat bot that should have that popping up as well. Art, maybe we can, Art already did it. There's the Gleam link, everybody. You can get in on that by just going to Gleam and entering through there. We've done that before. When does this giveaway end? This giveaway will end on the last day of IAE, which I believe is December 3rd, but we're going to do the giveaway on December 2nd. So it ends on December 2nd. Okay, so there's multiple ways to enter on that Gleam link. None of them cost money. Some of the ways to enter are to follow on Twitter, to follow on Twitch, and all that kind of stuff. If you are already a follower, you don't have to unfollow and refollow. It will count those automatically. You just got to click on those options to enter. It checks to see if you're following, and then you're golden, okay? So that's all you have to do. It takes that into account, okay? So yes, the RSI Perseus, this is a big giveaway, folks. It's an expensive ship, and when it goes flight ready, it's going to get even more expensive. So this is a big one. I have given away a Perseus before, and or was it a Perseus or was it a Polaris? I know I gave away a Polaris before. Either way, this is a big one. You got plenty of time to enter. Hopefully you all are excited about this. I talked about a Perseus giveaway back during, it may have been during the summer. I can't remember when during the summer, but I decided to hold off on that. Some of you may have noticed that I talked about it, but then never activated any sort of giveaway. The reason is that after more thinking about it, I decided to hold off until we got to IAE, because I was like, what better time to do this giveaway than when it's, you know, the ship is coming to players' hands, right? So, I mentioned during St. Jude's. Okay, thank you, Bingo. Thank you. And Bingo, hope you're doing well. Yeah, it was mentioned during St. Jude's, something I wanted to do. But, you know, now we are, we're doing it for IAE. It's going to be a lot of fun because we'll get to see it in players' hands in only like 13 days from now, which is really cool. So thank you all for all the follows, everyone. As a matter of fact, I may have to turn the follow alert off because I imagine we'll get a few follows. So there you go. There is the Gleam link for the Perseus. Now, I want to talk about one other thing, giveaway related, okay? As you all know, CIG is very generous now in that they will occasionally supply me with ships to give away to you all. I suspect that that will be the case for IAE as well. Obviously, I don't know what those would be. Generally, they're, you know, sort of medium-sized ships or starter ships or stuff that makes sense. And again, very, very thankful for CIG doing that. I'm very appreciative. So those will also be coming during IAE. Once those come and I have them and they're in my hangar ready to give out, I'll start the giveaways for that as well. Those will probably be done through Gleam, just like this Perseus giveaway. But this Perseus is from my own hangar, straight to you all. So get in there while you can. And yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention, I don't do this much, but as you know, I mentioned this on a previous stream that I'm getting to that point where I'm going to need to start considering a new GPU soon. So I decided to start a Ko-Fi link. Is that what it's called? Ko-Fi? Coffee? Coffee. I think it's a coffee link. To start slowly raising funds to help offset the cost of a new production level GPU. Production level meaning something I can do the 3D rendering and all the stuff we do. I may pepper that link or put that link in chat once tonight. I'm not going to do that regularly until, you know, a few episodes, a few streams from now. It's not like this has to happen right away, but you all are very, very helpful. Coffee is coffee. Thank you, Squirrel. But you all are always very supportive and helpful in keeping the STARJUMP dream alive. So appreciate that. And I thought this time I would just do it to where Patreon was not the only way you could support, where it's like a subscription thing. With the coffee link, you can do like a one-time, maybe it's $1, maybe it's $5. So that is up to you. Only do it if you can, not required. There we go. I got that out. Now we can get to the fun stuff. Okay. Now we can get to the fun stuff. We're going to start with, let me go ahead and pop over. We're going to start with IAE news. IAE news. I wasn't aware this was dropping today. Was anybody else? Art, did you know that we were getting IAE information today? Did I just miss this
No
in
clue.
the week? Okay. So there you go. I was totally unaware that this was going to be dropping today, but I'm glad it did. It's obviously it's exciting anytime IAE rolls around or any of the big Star Citizen events. And in the case of this, we know we're getting a big monster ship, and we finally got our first preview of that ship, and that is the RSI Perseus. But we're going to analyze that video. We're going to get all into that. But before we do it, and there she is, we're going to get all into it. We're going to analyze the ship. Don't worry, we're going to get all into that. But we're going to go ahead and just sort of cover some of the information here. So expand your universe. That's an interesting thing. I did just see that 4.4 just went to Wave 1 PTU, by the way, everyone. 4.4 just went to Wave 1 PTU, which is the day after I got Evo access, which makes sense. So so those of you should be able to check out Levski and Nix on the PTU if you're Wave 1. So expand your universe really sort of makes sense, right? Expand your universe. They're opening up another system. The theme is there. It kind of makes sense. I think they did the same thing with Pyro. I forget what the tagline for that IAE patch was, but it was something related to that, expand your universe or something like that. IAE begins in 13 days, 17 hours, and 31 minutes. So we are very, very close. British Taxi says, is the Perseus in Wave 1 PTU? Pretty sure it's not. I think they're holding off on that one. Although I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe it is, but I don't think so. It's going to be in Orison this year, again, running from November 20th to December 3rd. Now, remember, December 2nd is when the Perseus giveaway ends, okay? That's when we're going to draw that winner live on stream, okay? Moving down to the calendar here. Now, this is very interesting. This is where it gets a little exciting for me because CIG, for as long as I can remember, has sort of stuck with a pattern when it comes to these calendars, and I think you all know what I'm talking about, which is there's always a new ship manufacturer, and then the next manufacturer is someone doesn't have a new ship, and then the next manufacturer after that is someone coming with a new ship. So they kind of flip-flop like that. And by looking at this calendar, you can kind of read between some of those lines. So obviously November 20th to the 21st, RSI, it's the Perseus. It's going to be all about the Perseus, okay? Not a mystery there. On November 21st to 22nd, we get Origin Jump Works. Remember, they have one day there on the 21st where they sort of overlap. So November 21st to 22nd, it is Origin Jump Works, okay? Won't be anything new that day. Don't get excited if you're an Origin fan. There won't be anything new from Origin yet. Now, going to November 22nd to 23rd, Drake Interplanetary. This is an exciting one. I think we are pretty certain we're going to be getting this so-called Drake Clipper. Funny enough, this is the ship I'm most excited about for IAE. As many of you know, I'm a big Drake fan, and I am personally thinking that the Clipper is either a heavy fighter / bomber, or it is a gunship that is sort of a counter to the Paladin or Redeemer, but we'll see, okay? I don't totally know what it is. That's what I'm thinking it is, but we'll see. We'll see. November 23rd through the 24th, those are a lot of our Alien and Gray's Market sort of manufacturers. Nothing new from them is expected. I know there was some thinking that maybe another Gray's Market ship, but I don't think so, not at this time. November 24th to 25th, we have Kruger, Mariah, and Misk. Now, it's looking highly likely that we're going to be getting the Kruger L22 Alpha Wolf, or Alpha. Don't fully know the name there. I'll tell you right now, though, I don't know how you feel, Art, but I absolutely love the Wolf. So I'm very interested to see what the L22 is. I'm interested. November 25th to 26th, Anvil Aerospace. Nothing new expected from them on this day, but we did get some interesting Anvil news. We're going to talk about that in a minute. By the way, 07, everyone in chat, appreciate you for coming by and hanging out. If you see that Gleam link pop in the chat, that is the link that takes you to the Perseus giveaway. We'll be giving that away on December 2nd, but you can enter it now. November 26th to 27th, we have Argo, Consolidated Outland, and Gray Cat. I would love to be able to say we're getting a new Consolidated Outland ship, but I don't think that is the case. What I think we're going to see is the Gray Cat MDC. As you all know, that leaked out a little bit. We might go over that here later, but the Gray Cat MDC. Okay. Viper Pilots 99 says the Clipper is in the video. You will definitely have to give me a timestamp for that one, Viper. I did not notice it, but I believe you. November 27th to 28th, Crusader Tumbrel, nothing new expected from them. And then we get the interesting one. On November 28th and 29th, the last day, we have Aegis Dynamics. Now, there's a couple ways to read into this, okay? One way to read into this is that we're getting something new from Aegis that has somehow been kept secret from us, okay? Another way of reading into it is that there's nothing coming. However, CIG will be able to use that as another Idris sail wave day, which obviously it is. The Idrises will be sold on that day, so will Javelins. So it's a place for CIG to sort of make a good bit of like hull limited money, and there's a lot of ships for sale on Aegis Day. So it maybe is a good way to end the show just based off that fact alone. So again, we've had no leaks, no sort of even a thread of information about anything Aegis related recently. As a matter of fact, the last Aegis thing we'd heard about was the Aegis Hermes, and it looks like now that was just a red herring, and that Hermes is actually some sort of RSI thing, right? The other way to look at Aegis, and now I'm going on a big limb here. I do not want anyone to get excited, because I think if this was the case, we would have heard about it already. But it's possible they could drop the Javelin flight ready on that day. I don't think that's the case, though, and I'll tell you why. We got our what do you call it, the IAE video, and there's not a single Javelin in it, and I do not think they would miss the opportunity to throw that in there. Devouration 21 seconds. Is that when the Clipper shows up? Because I'll definitely take a peek. But so it's a little hard to read into the Aegis Day on what that could be. It could be anything, obviously, but it'd be super exciting if there was a new Aegis ship of any kind, not even just like large capital, even a small Aegis. We haven't had an Aegis ship in a while. It'd be interesting to get an Aegis ship. That's a total surprise, something we didn't expect. I think that would be pretty interesting, right? And another reason I'm suspecting the Javelin isn't quite ready is we haven't heard anything about it. And we do know that the last time we heard from John Crew about it, he stated that there was still some sort of figuring out that needed to be done on the ship and in relation to its modular rooms, right? And so we'll need to see where they land with that. But it's just something to keep in mind. All right, real quick here, we are going to, and then of course the Best in Show day will be November 29th. We get our Best in Show paints for the 4 ships. And then November 30th to December 3rd, we have our finale, okay, where you have a chance to get all of them. Now, I want to announce something. On November 20th, Perseus Day, I will be doing a big RSI Day stream, okay? We're going to check out the Perseus live on stream, all that good stuff. But then from the 21st all the way to November 29th, I will be away. I'll be on a trip. But my amazing wife, who some of you saw on stream not too long ago, has allowed me to do occasional streams while we're on our trip. So I'm going to kind of take my laptop setup. I'll be doing some guerrilla style streams on those new manufacturer days. So on Drake Day, on Kruger Day, on Grey Cat Day, and ultimately on Aegis Day, I'll probably do streams to talk about what was delivered or what came out. They probably won't be 2-hour streams, but they'll probably be like hour-long guerrilla style streams. So, okay, Socially Confused says, question, do you think we'll get a ship silhouette for 2026? I sure hope we do. Yeah, I really, really hope we do. I really, really hope we do. Okay, giveaway link. I'm going to put this standby. I'll paste it right there, and I'm actually going to pin it into chat for those of you on YouTube at least, because I am able to pin messages to chat.
Yeah, it won't let me pin on YouTube, so
okay.
I'm useless to you there.
I'll have to give you that ability for sure. And everyone, here is the Ko-Fi link if you want to help support STARJUMP with a one-time donation. We are working towards a new GPU. By we, I mean me. All right, everybody, we're gonna jump into the next thing here, which is sort of analyzing the video. I do want to get to that, and to do that, I have pulled it up, and we are in Frame.io real quick, which allows me to scrub really nicely. So we're gonna go through this step by step in slow speed and give it a watch here. Okay. All right, here we go. About to get our first appearance of the Perseus. Let's pause it right there. My initial impressions, and Art, I want to get your initial impressions as well. My initial impressions are wow. And again, this is the way I feel a lot of time when any new ship comes, especially any new sort of modern ship here in the last year and a half, where the level of detail and the lighting and just the attention to small elements of the ship, small exterior design accents and stuff, just CIG has just risen the bar in huge ways in the last 18 months or so on that. And I feel the same here. One of the things I think that stuck out to me immediately, which those of you that kind of were here for the Carrack's journey through development, you know, concept work all the way into development work and then flight ready. One thing that I'm really happy to see is the ship largely looks like the concept, right? That's a big deal. And I think a lot of people today do sort of take that for granted, but you go further back, ships did differ pretty wildly from their concepts, from their concept models. Another ship that will undoubtedly do that will be a ship like the Banu Merchantman. Ships like the Crucible, the Genesis Starliner, the Endeavor, those are all ships that are going to really change from their concept, okay? The Polaris to some degree. But the Perseus, being that it's a newer concept, they really stuck to that model or to that concept design, and I'm really happy to see that because it's a Gavin Rothery design, and he's an amazing ship designer. So that's my initial impression without looking at all the specific details. Oh, look at this part of the turret or that part of this or this. Just the overall 30,000 foot view was awesome. It looks like the concept. Art, what's your thoughts on it? What was your initial impression upon seeing the video today? I know you are particularly excited for the Perseus. Am I right?
Absolutely. I am totally stoked for this beast of a ship that's going to give both large and subclass and some medium ship owners some shivers, but also those capital ships. They're not kings anymore.
Yeah.
With a couple of these bad boys floating around.
Yeah.
Concept wise, I thought it looked very good. I think they kept a lot of the original design, and the things that they changed, I was like, makes perfect sense. It doesn't break up too much.
Yeah.
Definitely love what I seen.
It feels aggressive. It feels, I will say that, there was some criticism, not necessarily by me, but there was some criticism that the Polaris was almost too detailed, which is a weird thing to say, but I think where that's coming from is that the ship is actually too detailed for like LOD 2, LOD 3 sort of levels where you're further back and the ship starts to look a little like almost like granulated, where it's like almost overly textured. Now, when you get up close, that looks super good. But at further distances, the Polaris does have some like readability issues. And I think CIG was sort of aiming to solve that with the Perseus. And I'll be honest with you, it looks like they did. I mean, it is detailed. It is highly detailed. A lot of those overlapping panels that the RSI is known for and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, there's also a good amount of smooth, flat, kind of armored looking pieces that don't have a lot of detail. And I think it's a nice, healthy balance. So we'll kind of walk through this again here. I may back it up. You'll notice something here I want to point out. Now we have our big man dual size 8 turrets here. Again, we're assuming these are size 8s. Um, they are manned. You could clearly see the cockpit in there or the seating place inside the turret for a gunner. But there's a couple interesting things here. You'll notice that mounted on this turret as well are dual Gatlings. Don't know what the size of those are, but dual Gatlings in addition to the two main turrets. So there's probably going to be two fire modes for this turret. And I would imagine that's going to be the same for the turret underneath, right? So that's really interesting. That's something that was not in the original concept. The only place we've seen that before is on the Javelin turrets. Go ahead, Art.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. And then what's nice about that too is it allows these ships to not just rely on, and I know we're going to get to it here in a minute, is the PDCs.
Yeah.
You know, for those small fighters. Now we have a capability where we can actually, our gunners can actually fight both big and small ships.
Yeah.
Which makes this, you know, almost an asset for any operation.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. And to me, it encourages the use of turrets in some way, because now turrets don't feel so limited by just their main guns, right? There's different types of targets now that the turret gunner can employ on. And the I would go so far as to say that I hope this becomes the norm and not the exception. I'm not even saying that CIG really needs to go back and update some older turrets, although I think that's warranted. But I really hope on future ships, especially big warships, and we know it's coming with the Javelin, but I would think that the dual size 8 turret on the Kraken and others that are at that level where the turret is now so big, if it's a dual size 8 or something, that it's now limited in the types of targets it can attack. By putting those smaller guns on there, it just really opens up the usage of the turret. You know what I mean? You're much more apt to put someone on that turret if you're being swarmed by one fighter now. You know what I mean? Or not swarmed, but being attacked by just one pilot now, because now that turret still means something. You don't have to get out of that turret to go get into a smaller dual size 4 turret. You know what I mean? So I kind of like that. I really hope they keep that. Hudson Hawk says, who's the second person talking? You should see their faceplate there, Arturius, who produces all the episodes. So everyone give Art a shout out. Everyone, we got a great turnout today. Got 102 on Twitch, and we got 353 on YouTube. Really appreciate everyone hanging out today. We're talking about the Perseus. The next thing we see here, right here, is the PDC. Now, we knew that the Perseus was going to be getting some PDCs. John Crew all but said that. And we don't know how many the ship is getting, but if you suspect there's one on this side, one on the other side, that's 2. I would imagine 1 to 2 on the rear, and then at least 2 on the bottom. I think we could be sitting anywhere from 4 to 6 PDCs total for the ship. Art, is that what you're kind of thinking?
Yeah, that's what, from me watching the video several times over, I'm in that same range of 4 to 6.
Okay. Continuing on here, again, this gives you another good visual of the level of detail they gave the exterior of the ship. Again, you have those panel lines there, you have that greebling, you have that fidelity, but at the same time, there's not... There's actually big sections where it's flat and undetailed, and it strikes a nice balance, especially when the ship is at distance, versus the the Polaris, where there's like not an inch on the ship that has not got some detail item, whether it's a decal or some sort of overlapping panels, or some sort of texture trick going on where it looks like there's depth there. So it just becomes almost overwhelming. And again, I am someone who stands by my comment that the Polaris is currently and still the high water mark of exterior ship work by CIG. Now, I think the Perseus here is coming in a close second, may overtake it. I need to see it in game. But yeah, I really think it looks good. It looks aggressive. I know Shady Face said there in chat, Execute should be happier now. One thing Execute did like about the Kraken, I know this, is that he really liked that the Kraken is aggressive looking, and this ship looks aggressive, and I think that's sort of, that's the vibe you want in a ship like this. We'll continue on here. Now, I'm going to pause it right here. If you look up in the bridge area here, you can see a lead seat. Now, if we go back to that old image that leaked out, or that didn't leak out. It was the sneak peek image, this one here, myself included. And look, for those of you that think I can't say when I'm wrong, I can absolutely say when I'm wrong, and I'm about to do that. So make sure you clip it. We have these two forward seats here, and then we have this middle seat that looks way further back and low. And everyone, including myself, was surmising that, well, not everyone, there was a lot of you that thought this was still the pilot seat, but I really thought that they had changed this to where the pilot sat on the left, just like the Polaris, and that's why we had the flight stick here, and that was going to be the case, and that this was more of a captain's chair in the back. Well, when you watch the video now, that middle chair is actually forward, so that chair must slide way forward, and that must be the pilot seat now. If it's forward of the other two seats, I would imagine that is the pilot seat now. So I was wrong on that. I'm glad to see they made that change and went back to the original sort of concept where the pilot sat in the middle. And I know that's going to make a lot of people happy. Art, did you notice that? Is that something that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I wonder if when we get into it, if it's going to be some sort of animation where it lifts us up a little higher to give us a better visual. I think that's part of it is the angle that we're seeing, and then the angle that the picture was taken.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll have to really get in there to be sure, but I do think that there's going to be some sort of an animation that lifts us up and gives us a clear line of sight, because from what I seen of that original picture, that was not a good line of sight for visual of where you are piloting that ship.
Yeah, and let me ask you this: what is your opinion on the, like with the Polaris, where the pilot sits on the far left side of the bridge? What is your feeling on that? Do you like that? Do you like pilots to be situated middle?
It's, for me, it's a bit confusing, because also your co-pilot in the Polaris specifically, your co-pilot can actually fly the ship if nobody's sitting in the pilot seat.
Right, that's true.
And the co-pilot has access to the hangar doors, everything else, where you have that captain's chair in the middle. That would be really nice, I think, for a pilot seat, and let your weapons officers kind of have those front seats so they can kind of look around and kind of get better visual before they enter those remote turrets. But when you have that left and right, it was like, why am I getting in the pilot seat when I could just get in the co-pilot seat and run the hangar and run everything else? So it's more of preference, but I don't like being on either or. I would much rather be in the center of the ship.
Right. Yeah. I think too that one of the nice things about the Perseus in that center pilot seat is, with that center gun there on the forward nose of the ship, it's just going to give you a really nice synergy between your pilot and the gunner for proper alignment. And now the turret can turn, obviously, but just proper alignment for forward-facing shots and stuff. So I think there's going to be a little bit more of like a sort of a better communication synergy between the pilot, between the gunners and stuff for positioning and stuff to better hit targets. So I do like that. Obviously, the Polaris is a much different type of ship. It's firing a much different type of ordnance, through its torpedoes and whatnot. But it is interesting to see, and I truly had thought CIG had moved to more of a Polaris type situation where the pilot was going to be situated on the port side of the ship, port side of the bridge. But obviously, I'm happy to say I was probably wrong. Not confirmed, but probably wrong. Let's continue on here. This video, let's talk about the next thing real quick here. I know that someone had mentioned, did I think the ship would grow? I didn't think it would personally. Here's another great shot of it. I didn't think it would grow personally, mainly because I didn't think it necessarily needed to, but we all do know ships, when they go through production, they kind of glow up a little bit, get bigger. However, I did say that if it did grow, the reason it would probably grow would have to do with engineering. If you go back and look at some of the original cutaways, either it was hidden in those cutaways, or maybe it wasn't planned for, but the engineering area looked really small on the Perseus. And from what I can tell, And this sort of started with the Polaris, but you know, in some of the monthly, in one of the more monthly report, one of the more recent monthly reports in relation to the Kraken, they talk about the engineering areas sort of getting reconcepted. And I think it's because that on some of these bigger, larger multi-crew ships, they want those engineering areas to be a very big deal, right? They want them to be one of the most important parts of the ship, the heart of the ship, where a lot of stuff needs to happen. So in order to accommodate that, some of the engineering sections of some of these ships have to grow and get a little bit more substantial and more interesting. So if the ship grew, I think that's probably the reason. So this is kind of a fun shot here that we see. We see it flying with next to a Polaris. Polaris there is behind it. Now, there is one interesting thing that happens in this shot. I'll try to catch it right here. Actually, let me back up just a tad. Right here. You'll notice on right in this area of the ship right here, I don't know if it's the case on the starboard side of the ship, but on the port side of the ship, so the left side, there is an airlock, a docking collar, okay? I don't know if that's the case on the starboard side, but more importantly, on the left and right of that little docking collar area, there looks to be, originally I thought it was a missing part of the model, but I did watch JoJo TV's recent video analyzing this, and I kind of agree with him that I think it's windows. And yeah, Harlick says it there in chat. It looks like windows. If you pay deep attention to it, it actually looks like there's some tall vertical windows there. Very hard to see, but if you watch it here, you can kind of see them. It's almost like you can sort of see through the ship a little bit, but you're not seeing the space station behind the ship when it passes by. So it does look like the Perseus got some large windows there. This is something I'm just going to point out. If you go back and read the some of the older Polaris concept discussion that was in really old issues of Jump Point. I think you got to go back to like 2017 issues of Jump Point. But if you go back there and analyze it, one of the biggest things that CIG developers were going back and forth with on the Polaris concepts was that they wanted to get some sort of like a lot of windows in the Polaris. And they came out with a really famous concept image. I don't have it handy, but in that concept image, you'll notice these little places on the Polaris that are like this amber color. Those are windows, right? If you go back and find that, it's some of the early concept imagery for the Polaris. They had these nice little like amber windows scattered around the hull. And I was truly hoping that when they did the Polaris, it was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when they were working on it, I kept saying to myself, man, I really hope we get those windows, but I haven't heard anything about them. And I was concerned because I was like, well, it's a military ship, so maybe they're not going to put any windows on it. Well, sure enough, they didn't. It's just the bridge, and that's pretty much it. So I'm really happy to see that we did get some on the Perseus. I love windows in ships. I think a lot of you probably do too. It just adds a little bit to the fantasy. The Idris, the Javelin have incredible windows throughout the ship that you can look out. I really hope that Kraken gets some of them, and even ships like the Ironclad. But it was nice to see those. Nice little surprise on there. We get to see the engines here doing their thing, which is really cool. Very similar to the Polaris. We'll hit play a little bit here. There is the Perseus coming in. Now, someone said at, what was it, 20 seconds, 21 seconds, we see possibly the Clipper. We'll keep an eye out. Now, one thing I noticed that was kind of funny in this shot, Art, I don't know if you noticed this, but it's going through the atmosphere, but both of the main turrets are turned backwards. Which I thought was kind of funny. I don't know if that was intentional or just something that happened when they were grabbing this image, but I just thought it was kind of funny.
It's the G forces.
It's just the G forces are too powerful. Yeah.
Turn it around.
Yeah. And by the way, nice to see everyone in chat. We have 105 people on Twitch. Absolutely amazing. And then a absolutely insane 380 people watching on YouTube. That's definitely my biggest YouTube crowd of all time. So thank you, YouTube, for showing it out.
Perseus brings the party.
The Perseus does bring all the partiers for sure. Now, here's one thing that this image does confirm. Again, it's nice just to get these confirmations. Again, confirms that there's still the two main dual size 8 turrets. They still have the one on the bottom. Okay, so thinking about that from your crew size on the Perseus, let's talk about like sort of minimal viable crew. Pilot for sure, obviously, right? Main top turret operator, main bottom turret operator. That's 3 people. And then there's a host of remote turrets on this thing. So let's add one more person in for that. So that's 4. And then you're going to probably want an engineer, a full-time engineer running if you're running combat ops on this. Once engineering comes in, that's 5. Even with that full complement, 5 people is pretty good for a ship of this size and a ship that, is accounting for engineering. 5 people, that's actually not bad. You take something like the Hammerhead and you're looking at 7, 8 probably, right? Probably 8. Yeah, probably 8. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is that I heard rumors, someone in chat, and I'm sorry, I wish I should have grabbed your name. I know you can speak up because you were mentioning it earlier, said that you have sources and that perhaps it sounded like the ship had grown to 125 meters, 125 meters long, which would be a pretty substantial, I'm gonna make up a word here, embiggenment of the ship. See, we make up words here. That's a pretty sizable increase. I mean, the ship was originally 100 meters, actually smaller than the Hammerhead, and now it's looking like it's possibly 125. Against, I can't confirm that, everyone. That's just something someone said in chat, but it could very very well be possible. That would still put it squarely in that sort of higher large category of ship. Large ships start anywhere from about 55 meters ish up to 140 range. So 125 meters kind of puts it in that higher end of the large ships. Once you get past 140 and you start getting into like Odyssey territory, then you start Odyssey and like Polaris territory, you're starting to get into that like sub capital ship stuff. So yeah, another interesting thing that we're seeing here is we're seeing a chin-mounted remote turret. Again, not sure the scale on those. If I had to guess, I'm guessing size 4s. But we have a remote chin turret there. So again, new addition that wasn't in the original concept. Let's go ahead and play here. I don't see anything that could be a Clipper here. I see an Idris, I see a Polaris, I see a Talon, and I don't know what that little thing is over there, but let's let it play again. We'll let it run through. Pretty cool shot, actually, of it entering the atmosphere. All right, we have a Talon and 2 Buccaneers. Nice to see the Buck getting a little love. It's funny. I love the Talons. I really do. I used to own one. I do like flying them. It's a sexy ship. Okay, so here we are. We see this Shiv. We got a Reclaimer in the background, an 890. Someone said there, oh yeah, look at that. What is that over there? I see what you mean. There is a weird vertical ship back there, isn't there? Let's take a screenshot of that. Nice find, whoever found that. Very cool. There is a little vertical ship back there in the far distance. What could that be? Could that be a Reliant? It's possible, but you know why it doesn't look like a Reliant to me? It looks like the top wing is much bigger than the bottom one by at least 15%. And I believe Art, you may know this better than me, but isn't the Reliant, isn't that pretty equal sides? Like the 2 wings are kind of equal length. Plus, the Reliant doesn't have this long nose on it.
Yeah, definitely a very interesting shape. I would agree that I think it's a little hit to that little Clipper.
Yeah.
or maybe a large
Alternaut
clipper.
says we got a lot of people in chat saying that's not the Reliant. So there we go. I know someone pointed this out. I wasn't sure. I can't remember. Someone in chat I know pointed this out earlier and said it was at 20-21 seconds. So thank you very much for that call out. Really appreciate that. I missed that earlier and I was looking for stuff. So there you go. And by the way, everyone, I know some of you have been asking questions. We are going to get to some questions here. That is very cool. That is really interesting. Let's do a few questions real quick. Green Shield says, what do you believe the Perseus is going to jump to cost-wise on the website when flight ready? Well, currently I believe it's 670. What is it? War bond. Is it 625 war bond? Pretty sure it is. 625 war bond. I would say, at least 700 war bond. 625 war bond, 675 credit. I would say 700 war bond or 725 war bond, something like that. They got to be careful on how close it gets to the Polaris because the Polaris is a much bigger ship, much bigger ship. Let me go a little bit more forward in the video. Someone said go forward a little bit more, which I'm going to do. Oh yeah, look at that. That is not, yeah, what is that? That is something. That is something. That is not a Reliant. That has got to be the Clipper. And I can already tell you if that is the Clipper, I'm really excited for it because I'm already a Drake fan, and a Drake ship with big vertical wings like that, I'm all about it. So yes, I'm excited. Next question. Gin and Tonic, our old friend Gin and Tonic says, what about the Salvation? Horrible name on Misk Day. Oh, did I not call that out? You're right. You're right.
No. You didn't.
Well, and Misk Day falls on the Kruger Day as well, though, so it'd still be a new ship day. So yeah, RSI Salvation and possibly the L-22 Wolf. Yeah. Kydels and Dayron Bolton both asked, question, could Aegis Day just be the Hammerhead rework gold standard? Could be. Absolutely could be. Yeah. Yeah. I got to tell you, though, I don't know how you feel about this, Art. I'd be interested to hear what you have to think, but I'll be honest with you. To me, the Hammerhead does not get interesting unless, and I know this would be a huge thing. We would have probably heard about it already. But if CIG released a kit you could buy for the Hammerhead that switches out the man turrets for remote turrets, and those remote turrets could be done with computer blades, like avionics blades, or not avionics blades, but AI blades. Yeah, that to me changes the whole Hammerhead discussion.
It's so much of it's a very cool ship. I like the thought of it. I like its purpose.
Yeah,
but it is so crew intensive that I could take if I skeleton crew it, I can take 2 Polarises out and have way more firepower, way more capability than 1 Hammerhead.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about fighters harassing me enough to blow it up.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
The other thing I would like to see that they could do with that Hammerhead, since we're on the topic, would be if they almost took like the left and right side and they slaved them together. So it was a single gunner, like a remote, but single gunner for both of those, just on the left and the right, and that would kind of cut 2 crew down, would make it a little easier.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. I like that. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: the Hammerhead as a platform has a lot of interesting options for where they could take it, and it's such a crew intensive ship already that I think when CIG does make those moves on it, they'll be able to sell it all over again, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because I know a lot of people that love the Hammerhead from a platform standpoint. They're just intimidated, in purchasing it simply because of their crew requirements. You know what I mean? And I can tell you right now, I think future, especially subcapital ships, right? Large to subcapital ships, I think you might start seeing CIG lean a little bit more towards smaller crews for them, a la the Perseus. And when I say smaller crews, I mean relative, so 4, 5, 6 people, because the Perseus sold really well on its concept pledge day. I think it's going to sell really well here on when it goes flight ready. It's going to make them a lot of money. And I think one of the primary reasons, well, there's two main reasons. One, because it looks cool as hell. Let's be honest. The Perseus is one of the best looking ships in the game. And two, it's got a low crew count for what you're getting. And I think that does matter to people. Simon Wolf says, is the 50 SCU cargo capacity where kinetic ammunition is stored? And if so, do we know how much space a decent load of kinetic ammo will take? If not, where will it be stored? So, yes, in the future, when we are storing extra ammo on board the ship, it will be stored on your regular cargo grid. CIG has actually stated that before. I don't know if there's any sort of magazine buffer sort of system like Salvage has. So I think it just goes in your regular storage. So it's up to you how much extra ammunition to take. But I don't think we're getting that capability with the launch of the ship. So, Hepford says, what do you believe is the thing on the bottom of the PDC on the view of the Perseus at 4 seconds? Is that an airlock? Let's go ahead and move to 4 seconds. Are you talking about this right here? That is a thruster. That is a classic RSI thruster. So is this one up here. That's just a thruster, a maneuvering thruster. Yeah. We're going to talk about maneuvering thrusters here in a minute, though, because we got something to say about maneuvering thrusters. So, yeah, don't worry. We're going to talk more about maneuvering thrusters. AKA says, or Akas says, do you see movement on the Galaxy? How far out do you think it is? I have not heard anything about the Galaxy being in development whatsoever. I'll be totally frank with you. I think they are going to take a break on RSI ships for a short bit. I think they're going to come back to them, and when they do, they're going to tackle the Arastra and the Galaxy. But I do think we might see a little bit of a break. I'm speculating here. I don't know. Hey, it's C Daddy CIG in chat. C Daddy, we hope you're well. Thank you for joining us. We're talking the RSI Perseus, this incredible trailer that was released today. Unbelievable. I think everyone in chat is excited. And we just started today our RSI Perseus giveaway that we're giving away on December 2nd, the day before the last day of IAE. So those of you that want to get into that, look for that Gleam link in chat. I know it's been popping up. You can go to that Gleam link. There's a few free ways to enter, but that will be your chance to win the new RSI gunboat. That is the RSI Perseus. It's going to be really exciting. It's a big, expensive ship. You can see it right here. It's your chance to win one. Coming right out of Grimm's hangar. Coming right out of Grimm's hangar and into your hangar. But yeah, thank you, C Daddy, for hanging out with us tonight. I got another question here. So yeah, I don't know. I think the Galaxy's a little way out, though. I think I can see CIG taking a little bit of a break on it. There's a lot of big ships in development beyond the Perseus. We've got Ironclad Assault. We've got ships like the Starlancer build, Pioneer. The Kraken is now going into development. They said the Liberator's going into pre-production. They said that it's possible at the end of next year they may even start putting the Banu Merchantman back in pre-production. There are plenty of big ships in production, right? So it would make sense that they take a little bit of a break on RSI for a bit. They've been pushing hard. Because remember, it's not just the Polaris and the Perseus. It's the Polaris, it's the Perseus, it's the Meteor. They're doing the Aurora rework. It's the Apollos, possibly the Hermes coming. So there's been possibly this new RSI Salvation. So they've been working on a lot of RSI stuff. A lot of RSI stuff. I50mm says, did you notice that there is something not human sitting in the Perseus's front turret? Or is it just Venkat? If so, strange looking seat. I didn't notice that. We can back up and see if we can see it, although we are going to talk about that in a minute. It looks empty to me, but they may have just not had a player model in that when they were shooting the cinematic. Or it may just be hard to see. It just sort of looks like an empty seat for me, though. But yes, the biggest thing we were looking at, I saw Art just say it, is right here at 21 seconds. Oh, and I went past it. We have this little ship right here, and I don't know if I can zoom in here. Can I? No, I can't. We have this ship here with the nice vertical wings and the nose sticking out. I'm thinking Drake Clipper. Others in chat have said it. I think it's the Clipper. All the other ships are obviously following it. If you look closely,
he pleads the fifth. So fair enough. We shoot our shot. I'm gonna shoot my shot.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Art tried. Art swung and tried. He got to plead the fifth, which is that's a good answer. That's a good answer, C Daddy. It's funny. I'll tell everyone in the chat. So everyone, if you remember, I was supposed to do the concepts episode tonight, the lost concepts of Star Citizen. I have pushed that to Saturday, but I reached out to Ben Curtis and asked Ben if he wanted to sort of make a comment on concepts that never made it, right? Like if he had anything to say about that. He said something kind of funny, and Ben Curtis essentially said, I got to be real careful about what I say about anything right now. But he was like, but I can say, and he told me something about concepts that I will talk about on the concept show. But poor Ben, I know it's going to be a rough time for him and the other ship developers. I know they would probably love to talk about what they've been working on and show it off, but you also got to play the marketing game and release things properly through the proper channels and all that good stuff. And you got to give Jared something to interview you about, right? So it's probably really hard. But yeah, this ship really right here at 20 seconds says super interesting. Hopefully it's the Clipper. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Clipper here in a minute, everybody. And by the way, again, don't forget to get in that Gleam link to get entered into that Perseus giveaway. Again, we're going to be peppering that all throughout IAE. And then on December 2nd, day before IAE ends, we're going to do a big giveaway stream where we're going to pull the winner live on stream. Again, doesn't cost you any money to get in on that giveaway. It's all free entries. If you're already followed on Twitch and YouTube or Twitter and all that crap, just click on that link in the Gleam link, and it will detect that you are already a follower, and you will get your credit for that one. Okay, you don't have to unfollow me and follow again. It will detect it. Okay, and then also don't forget the coffee link in chat there if you want to support StarJump with a one-time bit of support. You can also hit up our Patreon as well. We really appreciate it. Okay. Another question here from Lurker says, do you think CIG will start to add more ships per patch starting next year? It's a good question. We don't really know because we don't know what that cadence is for next year. This year, I think CIG was pushing kind of almost too hard. I said this on another stream, maybe Paul Shelley's Captain's Table, where I said that I almost thought they did too many patches, where like a month wasn't sometimes enough for me to play through some of the events. Now, maybe I'm just being slow and lazy, but I would prefer more of a 2-month cadence. It does look like they're going to try to do something more like that next year. I think that's better. Now, that does give the ship teams a little bit more time to maybe get 2 ships ready for each patch drop. So I think that's a reasonable assessment. Don't know if that's going to be, how they do it, but it seems like a reasonable assessment. Again, it kind of goes back to that thing of they're doing a lot of big ships. They're currently working on a lot of big ships. So it's going to depend on how many of the smaller ships they can churn through, what the balance is of brand new ships versus sort of variants or a la the Misk Fortune, you know what I mean? Or RSI Meteor. It'll be sort of we'll just have to see what next year works out to be in terms of how much of all that we're getting, right? Personally, the variants do not bother me like they bother some people. They do not bother me simply because CIG is working on so many big ships and so many backlog ships. I just saw in a chat earlier today, someone was sort of doing the complaint again of like, when's CIG going to tackle the backlog? And my response to that is, are you not paying attention? Because they've been pretty aggressively attacking the backlog, in my opinion. Going back since before the Polaris was hit, and now even more so. I mean, again, go back and look at what they're working on. They've got the Ironclads are in development, both of them. Kraken, the Starlancer build we know is in development. The Liberator's starting to go into pre-production. I mean, the whole B is in white box, so they are working on the backlog. They're actively working on the backlog. So so yeah. Let's see here. Let's look at another question here from Cosmic Turtle. Not sure if you talked about this yet, but do you think the Perseus cannons are Gatling? It looks like there are 3 barrels per gun in that video. I did not notice that, but let's take a look. And then I have a question for you, Art, after we look at this. Okay, so I've stopped it here. No, to me it looks like 1 large single barrel and then 3 sort of support things around it. So to me they look like single barrel gun, which is the original thing, the original sort of concept. I love how aggressive. I love how 1-to-1 they kind of kept it to the concept. But Art, I got a question for you. You in your org now, you do a lot of large scale fleet operations. We know that, right?
We've recently taken a break on some stuff just because this last patch was a little rough. But yeah, we do some.
But you do a lot of large scale fleet operation type things. So I got a kind of a multi-part question for you. In reference to that type of gameplay and that type of org, why are you excited about the Perseus? And how is the Perseus being planned on, or what's the utilization plan for the Perseus in the org?
So we're excited of it for a multitude of reasons. One is crew capacity, which we already touched on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is we've got a very nasty, just mean looking ship that's going to put out, hopefully, a lot of hate. For a small capacity of individuals, which definitely allows us to kind of push out our patrol routes, push out everything else, and give us the window so that if we are doing something that requires us to do a line in mine or something like that, our guys on the ground can actually mine stuff a little bit without other orgs or just random individuals coming in and ruining the day with a bomber. As for utilization, we have a lot of theories. We don't know yet. We won't know until we get our hands on it for sure.
Yeah.
But definitely a big fan of a wolf pack style tactic. Pairing this or 2 or 3 of these with, say, a Polaris would be an excellent tool, or even an Idris, so that the Idris itself can set back a little bit further. It's not right up front, taking all the hits. And these guys can kind of spread out, cause some damage, while the Idris is sending out fighters to cause chaos on our end.
Yeah.
Or with a Polaris to set back and throw torpedoes and hope to God they actually work and hit their target. Which torpedoes are sad right now.
Yeah,
I'm sad for that.
Yeah, I know torpedoes have sort of been a little bit all over the place, and that currently there's some disappointment with them. I mean, that's actually another thing to think about. Don't forget, everyone, that the Perseus actually carries 20 size 5 torpedoes. Another thing that sometimes people do forget, but this ship does come equipped with a decent, a decent arsenal of torpedoes. So, See, Daddy says, I love how we turn the turrets around for that reentry shot. We were just talking about that, and we were like, man, they must have turned them around for aerodynamics, for some sort of aerodynamic purposes. But yeah, I love that. That's really cool, though. Okay. So another a few questions here. Wolfbush says, when do you think we'll see refining gameplay? When do I think refining gameplay will be worked on? Well, I've said a couple times. I mean, I think that they will. Hey, and there's Guardian in chat. Guardian, hope you're doing well. Just watched one of your videos the other day. Really enjoyed it as usual. But the refining gameplay, I mean, it's in game now, obviously, refinery stations, but when is ship-based refining coming, I think is what you're asking. And I actually think it's probably coming next year. And the only reason I think that is that refining is a core critical component of crafting and base building. Don't know if base building's coming next year, but it's obvious that we're going to get some level of crafting next year, even if it's some sort of tier 0 or whatever. So I would think that ship-based refining is coming into the game. For me, it makes the most sense for that to be like the MISC Expanse, but maybe CIG has a different ship in mind to sort of bring that on. But I mean, I would think it's sooner rather than later, to be quite honest with you. Squirrel says, question, do you think the Hull B will still be able to land on planets? Also, do you think they will increase the SCU count on it? I don't know about the SCU count, probably a little bit because it got fully reconcepted, but I do think it'll be able to land on the ground, laden with cargo. I do think that's a thing. I do think they're going to try to preserve that about the ship. I think it just got I think the Hull B probably received a little bit of a decent rework in terms of its spindles and how it carries that cargo. So yeah. Wolf says Expanse versus Galaxy refining. Yeah, I mean, it could easily be the Galaxy that brings refining gameplay on with that module. The Expanse is just an interesting ship to do it because it's a small single person solo ship that specializes in that gameplay loop. So it just makes a lot of sense for it to be the Expanse that brings it on. So, and there was recent talk about how, you know, the expand or how refining plays such a core critical part of the mining and salvage gameplay loops, right? So real quick, I want to switch over real quick to a post made on Spectrum in regards to the recent QA dev playtest on the RSI Perseus. Now, this was mentioned, and Raven CIG came out and replied to it. I thought I'd read a little bit of that here. I actually have not read it yet, so there may be some interesting information here. It says, hey, friendly neighborhood embedded QA here. I took the lead on organizing the playtest, and I'm happy to share a bit more about this. Earlier this year, we did some similar large-scale internal testing to help prepare the way for the updated Aegis Idris to hit the persistent universe, which helped form a workable testing structure for these kind of tests. After that success, we wanted to continue to learn from integrating the different levels of QA, so upstream with embedded QA working directly with the teams, all the way to downstream to release QA, who you may often see, especially in the PTU and live environments. So there's sort of two different QA teams going on there. To add new layers of testing that focused on multiplayer and momentarily stepping back from a highly technical approach to just play with the ship like many of us play the game when we get home. We also wanted to put into practice lessons that we learned about multiplayer testing that came up with the release of the Kruger L21 Wolf. So essentially what they're saying here is that they're doing these play tests with ships that are specifically meant to not just look at the ship from a stats and numbers perspective in terms of like how it's testing from a metric standpoint, but it sounds like, unless Art, you're reading something different here. And by the way, everyone, I see that a number of you have donated via the coffee link to help support getting a new GPU in the future, which I'm going to need to continue to make content. And I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. Again, only do it if you can. It's not critical, but I do appreciate the support as always. I really do. But so this sounds like that they are taking these ships into just kind of normal gameplay sessions to see how they perform. And I hope that is the norm moving forward. I really do.
Exactly, because I mean that's what the player
Yeah,
does. It may not be super intelligent that a certain member of my org, um, who's asleep right now, thank God, uh, likes to take his Idris everywhere. And
yeah,
there's a lot of times he takes his Idris to places, and I'm like, this is pointless. But it's his ship, and he wants to use it. So
right.
it's good to see that they're willing to test things on just a very generalized scale, take them all kinds of places to see how they behave, so
Yeah,
that they react accordingly. Because that's what the player's going to do.
right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's just a good way to test these ships, test how they are actually used, right? In a multiplayer or a PvP or even a PvE sort of scenario. It says here earlier in October, we set out on a plan to answer a couple of big questions. A, how does the Perseus perform under the rigors of a fully crewed and multiplayer environment? B, does the Perseus feel like the sub-capital killer we in the community envisioned during its concept? Love hearing that, by the way. To answer those questions, we put together about a half dozen teams to fully crew multiple Perseus and put it through its paces from basic ground cargo and station operations, atmospheric and zero-G flight trials, and a massive melee that began with pitting the Perseus against all classes of fighters, subcapital ships, think Hammerhead, and capital ships, think Polaris, both in dense PvE engagements like our mission content, as well as org versus org style PvP battles. In our PvP battles, we opened out flooding the field with fully crewed Perseus ships, and as unfortunate crews met their demise, we reorganized into fighter squadrons to get revenge. Again, great to hear that's how they're structuring this, that it's not just about sort of fleet battles, but they're looking at ground operations, station operations, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's just, again, really, really, really nice to see. Because again, I imagine this is going to filter into all ships with a large footprint like this. Ships that have, especially ships that have a, an opportunity to sort of, have a big impact on the verse. So especially large and capital ships, subcaps and stuff like that, to go through this level of testing, I think is pretty critical. It says here, I want to give a shout out to all the folks internally that signed up to crew in our fleet. We had designers and artists who built the ship, tech artists, player and vehicle experience teams, as well as end-to-end representation of QA. What made the testing successful in terms of how we reported it in the most recent monthly report was multifold. It gave us an invaluable opportunity to answer our questions about how the ship feels by playing with it like a community. It also gave us an opportunity to have not only a funnel for gameplay feedback earlier in the countdown to release than ever before, but also gave many of the devs who directly worked on the ship an opportunity to learn how players will use the ship when it's released, while making adjustments and insights that will go on to benefit future vehicle content. I can't stress how important of a statement that is, and how great it is to hear. And it's so funny that this is sort of just an offhanded post by an embedded QA developer here, or person. Again, they probably just made this post because they wanted to state these things, but this to me is a huge, huge deal. This is like inside Star Citizen level bit of news here. Okay. Last bit here says, it's important to note that this kind of testing is an escalation of our approach that has always included continuous testing all through the development of our vehicles, as well as play testing as vehicles transition from active development into the final stages of their release. What we have done differently here, and what we are looking at as a potential option for vehicles in the future, is to set aside dedicated time where we focus on how the ship will be interacted with by our community and how they will interact with others. Our job as QA is ever to empower our developers with accurate information about the health of our content so that they can triage feedback and issues as effectively as possible, often complemented by the amazing evidence and data coming from the Issue Council. This kind of playtest gave us a whole new level of insight that often we might not see until after the vehicle is already released, which can be problematic. Remember, that can be pretty problematic. We've had issues with that in the past. I'm excited to read and watch as the RSI Perseus makes its way to the verse and keep notes of reactions, feedback, and any issues so that we can continue to hone our testing processes. So one thing I want to mention there, and again, this is why I think this is such a big deal, is that there's been many times where ships have come into the game, brand new ships. They come in one way. Maybe the community looks at them as being buffed and the sales going on. And then 3 weeks later, the ship gets nerfed a little bit or whatever. The community reacts with a, hey, did you just have it buffed because you were trying to sell the ship and now it's being nerfed? I never really thought that was the case personally. I always looked at it as like, okay, CIG is releasing a ship and then finally a lot of players are testing it and they're seeing that the numbers are not where they wanted them to be, whether the ship's too strong, too weak, whatever. So personally, I would hope that this type of testing where you're testing it in this environment leads to a situation where we have less of that happening, where ships come out and are nerfed after 2 weeks or buffed after 2 weeks or what have you. I don't know, Art, do you read it that way? I mean, I would imagine you like hearing this, right? Because it's going to make for better gameplay for the type of stuff you do with ships.
It will, because the issue is a lot of times you get in there and you test things, and for example, let's look at the Wolf. You know, a completely bespoke ballistics off the gate, right? A lot of people started using it, and then what happened a month later is they made some adjustments to ballistic damage penetration through shields and all that other stuff, and kind of it was somewhat of a nerf, but kind of a buff, but kind of still a nerf, and it was just like it felt like at the time that CIG was just trying to sell a ship. Now it was a very good looking ship. It's a very nice ship. A lot of people like it. Yeah. But it feels like that the CIG was trying to sell a ship, and I think the other thing on the other side of this was they have to get this ship right. It's one of the most popular ships out there. If they do not get this right, the amount of flack that CIG is going to get could impact future player counts, could impact like a ton of stuff, because again, this is one that everybody sees and they want it. And if you mess something up like this and make it so that it's not able to do any of its jobs that it was originally intended for, a lot of people are going to hate it. They're going to go to, social media, and then this whole shooting for 2026 for, Squadron and all this other stuff, and we're going to be awesome and amazing. It looks a little, we take them a little less seriously when it comes to that point. So it's good to see that they're actually paying attention.
And that's what again, that goes into that thing where it's like, we've all heard those accusations before, right? And I was like, oh, that doesn't look above board, but with this type of testing, and I'm taking this developer at their word. I believe what he's saying. And if this is the path forward on testing, especially again for ships that are going to make a big impact on the verse, that have sort of an oversized effect on the verse, if this is the testing moving forward, I think there's no other conclusion that it's going to lead to a more stable ship release where those ships come out and then shouldn't be going through those wild fluctuations of changes. Now, ships are always going to be changed and will be even past 1.0. I think everyone needs to understand that. This is an MMO, just like classes are in WoW. They're always being changed for the life of the game. But I hope that this will lead to more instances where the ships maintain sort of a stable phase when they are released, right? Yeah, Ultranaut says, what do you mean? It's and someone said, I think, who was it? Someone up here in chat, I think, was it Cody Fox? Cody Fox says, I'm 100% expecting nerfs for the Polaris. Here's the thing. You may not be wrong. It may need to receive nerfs. Once it's in the wider verse and it's tested at scale. Here's the thing. Nerf always is going to be looked at as bad, right? Because it's your ship. If the Perseus is your ship, you don't ever want to see it get nerfed. However, the other way you got to look at this is look at it from the Polaris owner's perspective, or the Idris owner's perspective. If the Perseus comes out and is more powerful than the Idris, that makes zero sense and it should be nerfed, right? These ships all have a special place they need to occupy, and they have to stay in their lane, right? So there's going to be nerfs that have to happen from time to time. Let's see here. Ark Ralph says, take a look at the ship on the top area before the final scene. Okay, what's the final scene? This ship. Let's see. Let me hit play here. This is the. I'm looking. This is the final scene. Some of these could be ships up here, maybe. Am I looking right? I don't see anything too crazy, unless I'm missing it. Ark Ralph, am I missing it?
Yeah, if you can give us a timestamp, if you're able to pull it up and give us a timestamp on it, that way we can better tone it down.
Now, if you're talking about this one here, obviously, where was it? I don't know, around 20 seconds. We did see that, obviously, but that's not the scene before the final. But yeah, let us know. Let us know. Couple more questions here. Martin says, where do you think the Hull B's current 140 price tag will go up to? That's a good question. I think it's maybe a little too early to speculate because we don't know where the SCU capacity is going to land for the Hull B. We don't know what the reconcept ship looks like. So personally, I think it's a little hard to judge that. I could see a world where the price goes up 20%, right? So maybe goes up $30 or so. I could see that. Lurker says, question, do you think next year we will see more focus on industrial related activities thanks to the crafting system? I hope so. It's been a very combat focused year, very combat focused end of year. I like a good combat ship, don't get me wrong, but I am very excited to start seeing a return or a focus on industrial ships. And here's the reason. Again, you're talking to a long-time Arma 3 player. I love a good bit of combat, especially large scale, mil-sim style combat. However, to me, you have to have something you're fighting for, right? Industrial operations, commercial operations, to me, all give a reason for combat to exist. So I'm fine with combat stuff, but I would like to see a return focus on industrial ships next year. And I do think we're heading that way. Michael Phillips says, let's see here. 25 seconds on top of the Idris. All right, 1 second here. 25 seconds on top of the Idris. Okay, stand by here. I see a Mirai. I see a Firebird or a Peregrine or whatever it is. That's a Spirit. Yeah, I don't see anything too special there or anything unknown. Yeah. Sorry, someone was pointing something out. Let's go back here. So Michael Phillips says, if salvage is starting to use refineries for RMC, would the Mystic Expanse need a rework to possibly support not only Prospector and Mole, but salvage ships? I would like it to. I would like if the Expanse has a way to, at the very least, take in those RMC boxes externally. So some sort of external magazine that it can bring those things in on. I would like to see that, yes. Squirrel says, do you think the infrastructure of engineering is going to help with the Expanse's development with refining? Yeah, probably, because I think the whole crafting gameplay interface and the way you're going to be able to interact with things is very similar to engineering. And engineering may allow for more nuance in how we craft. I don't know. I'm speculating a little bit there, but I could see a world where that's the case. Hudson Ox says, question, today I finished phase 3 and have to say, even though my PC is pretty powerful, it was lagging like I was playing on Steam Deck. How are we supposed to have battles with 100 ships like that? Instance content. It's going to be instanced. which we are going to
Well,
have am I answering that right?
yeah, I mean, it's that, and then from the guest that you're getting ready to mention,
Yeah.
he's got on his channel. He actually had I guess it was from a Chinese server where they had 180 players on. Now it doesn't mean
Yeah.
180 ships, but 180 players on fighting, and the server did not crash.
Yeah. Hey, Whiskey. Yeah, and we just saw a post the other day where some community got 400 people together in game. Now, they weren't fighting and battling. They were all just standing around. The game can support it. Sure, there's optimizations that need to be had. There's a long way to go there, I think, to get to the 1.0 product. But I think if you're wanting a like premium fleet battle experience, that's going to be had in instance content. We do have a stream next Tuesday that is going to focus on instancing, and we do have a guest. Is it Durgan? I got the name right.
Yeah,
Durgan.
Durgan.
Right? Yep, Durgan is going to be with us. And what org is he with?
He's with Shadow Moses.
Shadow Moses, and we're going to sort of get his perspective on instancing content. We'll have Art's perspective as well with the org he's in, the type of operations he does. And then obviously my perspective as someone who's going to do a mix of gameplay, everything from solo to industrial type, large scale industrial gameplay. So we'll be able to talk a little bit about all of our opinions on the instance content, but especially getting it from Durgan will be really, really interesting. So more on that. Bingo says, question, would you accept a, one second. Bingo Winchester, our old friend here, says, would you accept a size down in guns if they were switched to beams? I don't know if I'd accept a size down. Maybe. I guess it depends. I guess it depends on like how long you can keep the beam activated, what its damage over time effect would be. But if it has a good dot, a good damage over time metric, then I would be okay with a size down.
Well, let's argue.
Yeah.
Let's argue. It's the same length as an Idris. You know, a couple seconds. You know, nothing super, or well, however long an Idris is.
I forget the Idris one.
I normally try to stay out of the way when they start shooting beams at me. But even if it was a size 7, the dual size 7 beams, I mean that's
dangerous.
That's pretty powerful for taking out shields.
Yeah, it's pretty serious. Kenjin says, do you think the new mini Salvation is going to pump out 16 SCU like the Golem? I don't know. The Salvation's a big sort of question mark for me. I do think it's going to focus primarily on that powder element of salvage. They talked about there's sort of the 3 different categories of salvage now, one of those being powder as the resource you're gathering. I think the Salvation is going to focus on that. In terms of SCU capacity for that, a little bit unsure. The salvage is a big question mark for me. So yeah, I don't know. I personally could see it being I think it's supposed to play in the same ballpark as the Golem though. So yeah, I think a 16 SCU could be right, but I'm unsure. Raygun says, do you think we'll hear more about the Arastra with Nyx, mining, focus, and refining? Maybe, but like as I've said, I think, again, I'm speculating wildly here, people. I do not have any sort of inside information on this whatsoever. I do think the Arastra is not something they're going to pick back up for I think it's going to be a year or so until they pick that back up. I'm going to pause this video real quick. I'm going to go back to this. Couple of the things I wanted to mention. They did release a traveler's guide to Nyx today, which is really cool. And now that Nyx is officially 4.4 has hit the PTU Wave 1, this is good information to have. This gives you a good overview of what you can expect in the system. I did go in there in Evo the other day and check it out, and I got to tell you, it's stunning. What the amount of asteroids floating around and gases all around Levski are incredible. It's definitely a step up. I really hope they bring some of this to Stanton and like the Aaron Belt and all that kind of stuff, because it's on a whole other level, and it's only Delamar and Levski. You know what I mean? That's all we've got, and it's still it's stunning. It really is. It's an achievement. It looks great. They do talk about Levski. They sort of talk about some of the stuff there, what to expect from the landing zone. They also talk about a glimpse ahead beyond 4.4. They talk about those breaker missions, which I'm actually really, really excited for. Out of all the upcoming content they talked about CitizenCon, this is the one that's speaking most to me because it's an industrial focused event, but it's also kind of like a big world event sort of thing. So I'm really keyed on this one. They do talk about the municipal works, which are going to be further areas developed in Levski. They talk about those tactical strike groups, which I know, Art, you probably have a huge interest in. These are those big fleet operations that looked really, really, really cool, I have to admit. It kind of looks like a giant raid. And then ultimately, they do talk briefly about the 3 planets. Nix 1, Nix 2, and Nix 3, with Nix 1 being that first planet that we're supposedly going to get Genesis with. Lemming says, did I get my Evo invite? I did. I did get my Evo invite. I'm officially in Evocadia, which is nice. So I can start checking stuff out in Evo. And while there is an NDA, of course, on the visuals and gameplay of Evo, they are okay with us talking about our experiences, which is really cool. So thank you very much for CIG and those that helped get me into Evo. So there we go. I did want to move on real quick here. And we will talk a little bit more about the Perseus skin here in a second. I did want to move to the monthly report. And as you all know, Shipyard is a ship-focused show. So we're going to swing on down here to ships. Okay. We're going to read through this. We're going to look at the photos, going to point out a few interesting things that were found and talk a little bit about this. Obviously, Art, let me know if you have any additional thoughts as we go through some of this stuff. But first, in the UK, the ships team supported the release of the Anvil Paladin, Stinger, and Grey's Market Shiv at SitCon Direct, obviously. I still think the Paladin is super popular with everyone, and the Grey's Market Shiv is kind of one of my new favorite ships. I will say that thing explodes very, very quickly, but it is a hell of a lot of fun to fly. I'm just going to put that out there. And we got this cool image here of the Aurora, which we're going to talk a little bit about now. It says, work on the Aegis Hammerhead and RSI Aurora continued to bring them up to modern standards. For the Hammerhead, designs are currently setting up the revisions, including the addition of blast doors throughout the corridors and updated component placement. Great to hear, actually, with the resource management, engineering gameplay, being able to vent in rooms and stuff, having those bulkheads there, those blast doors. Says the Aurora is currently awaiting downstream support, particularly for audio and VFX, as those features some of the oldest in-game assets. Now, there's something I want you to look at with this image here. I'm going to back up. Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. I'm going to pull this bad boy up nice and big. There it is. Now, some of you may have just looked at the Aurora and said, neat. But the Aurora is the least interesting thing in this photo. The hangar that this thing is sitting in is the most interesting thing about this photo, because that is the internal hangar of the Drake Ironclad. You can see that this borrows heavily from that downward angled wall structure supports here that another image of the Ironclad will show in a second. And more importantly, you can see the walkway right up here, the gantry walkway that goes around the perimeter of the Ironclad's main hangar. So really cool, sneaky little drop there they did, putting the Aurora inside the Ironclad hangar. They go on to talk about the Ironclad in a minute here, but I thought that was very clever. Nice job, CIG. Says here, the Hull B is currently being prepared for its white box review, with final touches being made to ensure that it hits required functionality criteria. Okay. It says here, both Drake Ironclad models, so the Ironclad and Ironclad Assault, and the command module progressed well into gray box, with geometry and lighting updates to the modular kits helping set up the interior tone throughout. Now, that is another image there we'll pull up. Remember how I talked about those downward angled wall structure supports there in that hangar? You can see that same design language here and how the walls sort of angle in like that. But here is our first look of that gray box interior Ironclad. Again, using parts of the Drake kit. We've talked about this at length on previous shows. In the game files now, you can clearly see that ship kits are in there now. They used to not be in there, with Drake being one of the ones that is present, and hopefully those kits allow CIG to churn through ships faster. C Daddy says, fatter pillar for the win. I fully agree. The Ironclad is one of my top 5 favorite ships, I will say. It just hits all the right notes for me. Again, another Gavin Rothery ship. Pretty sure it's another Gavin Rothery ship. He also designed the Kraken. So there you go. But there you go. Internal look of the Ironclad. You can see that Drake vibe coming through. Again, one of the big reasons I've always liked Drake is because it's got that inside a submarine sort of look to it. If you watch any of those old submarine movies like Crimson Tide or Hunt for Red October, it's got that vibe inside, and I just love it. Moving on here, it says four unannounced ships progress through October. The first is on track for its final review in early November, while the second is art complete and currently with the downstream teams. Now, I'm actually going to move something over here real quick, everybody, so bear with me. I'm moving something over. Okay. I'll bring something up at the end of this here when we talk about ships. Says a third, an upcoming variant class passed its Lot Zero review. Following this, the downstream teams began their tasks ahead of its final review. So this is a ship very close to releasing. Says art was also completed for an all-new ship before it continued down the pipeline, with paints being created alongside a full pass from QA. Now, let me point out something here. Whenever paints are created, that means the ship is damn near done. Okay, that means it's pretty much finished. Part of me thinks this is the Drake Clipper, and we're going to talk about the Clipper here in a second. Says another new vehicle, the Greycat UTV, which was briefly shown during the introduction of the STV, entered its white box phase. The UTV was one of those vehicles I've really been waiting for. We saw an image of it in the past. It's nice to hear that it's coming back. I know a lot of people wondered where it went. Says here, finally for the UK team, pre-production kicked off for the Anvil Liberator. This phase is before official production begins and aims to get a solid base for the wider team to use for further estimation and concept requests to aid in smoother delivery. So what they're doing here in these pre-production phases is they're identifying areas of the ship that may need additional concept work. So those sections may need to go back to the concept teams, and those teams will work on what that would look like. And it also probably gives them a bit of time to look at what's going to be needed on the ship from just an artist standpoint. So they start understanding how big of a team, and what disciplines they're going to need to make this ship production go smoothly. So nice to see. I've heard probably more than any other ship, I've been asked about the Liberator in terms of did CIG forget it? And I'm like, no, it's just one of the newer concept ships that we don't have yet. There's a lot of older ones that we still don't have, although CIG is churning through these really quickly. And I think what you're going to see is CIG tackle some of these newer concept ships one after another to sort of get them off the table before they tackle some of those harder, older concept ships like the Crucible, the Endeavor, the Genesis Starliner, etc. So nice to hear that the Liberator is going into production. Art, any interest in the Liberator? Is that a ship that you are interested in?
I was very interested in Liberator, about 8 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of died away a little bit. I was more excited with the thought of it coming with, when we got Pyro and everything else. I was like, oh, it's going to be a great asset, because originally we had that whole thought of Pyro was going to be, not many stations. You're going to need a lot of transport. And I was like, this is a perfect solution for this. It'll come with that. No, it didn't.
Yeah.
But I do think that with this and also the Kraken coming, I'm hoping it'll be next year. I'm not going to hold my breath. It might be a year later, but I definitely think that we're going into the season of actual carriers, which makes me think that Nyx is going to be quite spacious when it comes to flying around and being able to get fuel and everything else.
Yeah, I do too. I really think CIG is going to make Nyx a much more sparsely populated system over Pyro. I think Pyro is a little bit just a product of its development timeline, and them waiting on server meshing. I think Pyro just sort of set in the oven longer than it was originally going to, and it just gave the locations team more time to just put stuff in it, and it sort of changed the vibe of the system to be a lot more survivable in terms of there's a lot of support there, right? So yeah, continuing on here though, it says the North American team progressed on 2 unannounced vehicles. One is currently with the downstream teams for closeout ahead of its final review, while the second is approaching its gray box review in early November. Elsewhere, the RSI Perseus had a large-scale developer and QA playtest this month to check its robustness and intent in combat, which was a great success. We just read the breakdown of that. And then, the best news in the entire PU monthly report, obviously, white box works continued on the Drake Kraken with more developers moving on to it as other projects were completed. Great to hear that development is almost ramping up a little bit on the ship as it moves into white box because now more developers are coming over. Justin Lemming says, Sergeant Grimm, did you notice that Nyx isn't lawless? Yes, I believe it's listed as like neutral, right? I think Execute was even talking to me about that the other day. By the way, everyone, thank you for the follows. I know many of you are probably following because of the giveaway, but I know many of you support the channel and really appreciate that. So thank you very much. Now let's talk about this image here. I'll pull up this image. I want you to remember this image. I'm going to zoom into a specific part of this image. What is this ship? That's the question. Well, I'm pretty sure this is the Drake Clipper, okay? And here's why. One of the first things when these mystery ships come out is I look for features of the ship and say, where do those features exist on other ships? And usually they do not show off maneuvering thrusters. And that's always irksome because a lot of the different manufacturers use unique maneuvering thrusters. That's sort of part of the signature. So RSI has theirs, Aegis has theirs, Origin has theirs, etc. Well, there's a maneuvering thruster here, and it's right there. You can see it's square, and it's inset into the ship a little bit, and it's got this almost like pyramid sort of thing popping up that's got like a chopped off top with the little nozzle on front, right? That's sort of like the maneuvering thruster for that. So what I'm going to do here is we are going to go, we're going to go back to Hangar Link real quick, and we're going to pull up a Drake ship, a newer one. We're going to pull up the Drake Cutter. Okay, our good old friend, the Cutter. There it is. We're going to zoom in. Actually, let me pop it in HD here. And we're going to zoom in right there. You see that thruster? What does that look like to you? It's kind of the chopped off pyramid with the little nozzle inset with the little warning dialogue, the little diagonal warning decal around it. Again, you go back to that image. Very, very similar. I'm about 98% positive what we're looking at here is a Drake ship. Okay. The only Drake ship we know about is the Clipper. Also, the paint scheme sort of looks Drake, and these sort of flat panels here are very reminiscent of the exterior of the Corsair. So this mystery ship here, I do think, is the Drake Clipper. Again, a ship I am now very excited for, especially since we're starting to think that that is the ship being seen here, you know, as those vertical wings fly by there. Again, I was speculating a little bit here, but I think there's some good evidence to sort of back that up. So anything else? Let me ask you this, Art. And we're talking about the PU monthly report and some of those ships that got updates. Let's go back to the Kraken for a minute. Now, for me, the Kraken was an easy purchase. It was the first big ship I bought. If I felt nervous to buy it, I was like, what am I doing? But I bought the ship specifically to act, and I talked about this on a stream the other day, specifically to act as a way station for industrial operations. So mining, salvaging, even cargo operations. As someone who does a lot of combat fleet ops, do you see a place in your org in the future for the Kraken? And if so, where does the org feel like it would be the most useful? Like what role would it occupy within fleet operations?
I think one is going to be, I think it's going to be a hub for players themselves. I think we're going to have a lot of. I'd like to see it. Even someone made a question about this, thinking about the future carriers and stuff. Do you believe that we will be able to get friends bedlogging on our ships and back? So they would log out and then log back on versus logging into their planet. I would like to see that, and I think that would be really good for carriers to have that ability of being able to kind of be that hub, at least until we get something like a Javelin or something for specifically for orgs.
Yeah.
But also definitely not a combat role. Your carriers are always squishy. I mean, if we look at even today's navies, the carriers don't travel by themselves. There's a whole battle group that goes with them for that reason. As while they may not be squishy, speaking for American carriers, that is, they have other ships with them to kind of protect from everything, kind of, And I would like to think that we'll bring them with us, but we will not bring them into a combat zone. They would kind of set back. Maybe they would be more of our logistical, kind of what you said, a little bit of a hub, maybe a respawn point for our fighter pilots.
Yeah, a rally point.
Them trying.
I could see them essentially being that. Yeah.
Yeah, versus them trying to launch off of an Idris mid-combat.
Yeah, I mean, I could even see in a situation where you have your medical ships in a big combat situation. You have your medical ships, and they are sort of centered in around the Kraken, even some sitting on the deck of the Kraken. They can push to the front if needed, especially to deliver people that have been respawned, but then they sort of stay back with the Kraken so that they can be constantly repaired, rearmed, and refueled. You know what I mean? I could totally see a situation like that.
Yeah. We've done some testing when it comes to in combat, landing ships, fighters, and bringing them back out. It's very tedious. It's a lot of coordination. The fighter pilot has to kind of, the pilot of we'll use the Polaris for example, because that's what I'm more knowledgeable on. That the guy has to fly straight at a set speed to let that fighter pilot get in, land, so our guys can rearm, repair, and get him back out.
Yeah.
We've tried it a few times, and either it works or they crash and burn and blow up.
Right.
So it's quite dangerous in combat. Now with the Idris, it's a little easier because they got that whole, they can fly all the way through the ship. It can open up both ends. But again, you're making your ship open to additional damage.
Yeah.
So I really think that, once we get the carriers in, I think you're going to see a lot of fighters kind of bouncing out, almost like what they did in a World War II style combat, where you have your battleships and stuff slugging it out on the front, and your carrier group's a little bit further back, and they're sending fighters to the fight, and the fighters are coming back to rearm and repair safely.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Real quick here, I'm going to take a few more questions, everyone, before we get to the end of the show. A couple more questions here. Lurker says, do you think with the addition of engineering, we can expect a rework on ship components and weapons at some point next year? I think that's sort of been happening in parallel to engineering. There's obviously been little updates with that throughout even the last year. I think that's very possible. Yeah, I think it's very possible. We'll see additional work come to components and how we interact with components. Green Shield says it doesn't look like anything has changed on the Aurora. Yeah, in that photo it doesn't. It was hard to see what we're supposed to be looking at. I think the real wink and nod there, though, was that it was sitting in the Ironclad's hangar. Simon Wolf says, how confident are you that the Kraken owners will get an Ironclad loaner? I don't know if I'm confident at all in that. I think it's possible. It's probably even likely. But I haven't thought about that much. But it would make sense that they do. I know currently they get a Caterpillar, but it would make sense that they get the Ironclad as a loaner. Kuma says, late question, but with the industrial focus coming up, do you think the Odyssey, specifically the refinery, should be changed to construction like the Starlancer build? I think it's possible that they could make a variant of the Odyssey that does that, but I think they've got a pretty I mean, here's the thing: the Odyssey is a big enough ship that they should have a variant of it. Absolutely. Again, I've stated pretty openly that I don't think the big ships should be single one-offs. There should be variants of all the big ships to make them more sellable to different types of people, to make it worth CIG's development efforts. So it's possible they could do that. Kuma says, Genetonic says, why don't they have tractor beam landing on carriers, especially like the Idris and Bengal? Why don't they have tractor beam landing to where like what we grab the ship and then pull it down?
Could you imagine the desync on that?
Yeah, I mean,
that'd be kind of rough to catch somebody.
Yeah, I guess it would make sense in like a realistic way that you would come up to like the back of the Idris and then tractor beams would take over, like automatic tractor beams, and pull you in safely. Like from a safety standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. Who knows though? I mean, maybe you never know. Maybe on the Kraken we'll get some sort of tractor beam out there that can pull ships down. I think what's going to be really interesting to see on the Kraken is if you have auto land capability. I think at one point CIG did say the Kraken was going to support that, but that could have changed by now, obviously, because that was a long time ago. I did see a question from Zotob in chat says, should fighters actually lose the ability to quantum flight to better balance force projection and assert the role of carriers? Well, that's a whole conversation we could probably have on the balance of fleet of different sizes of ships, especially fighters, to better strengthen the role of carriers and stuff like that. It's probably a bigger conversation. I do think there needs to be some limitations with fighters, possibly even losing the ability to quantum fly, although it's hard to know without the future quantum travel. Like, I think they should have quantum boost, but maybe not like long distance quantum travel.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think quantum boosting should be a thing for them, almost in Planetscape.
Yeah.
But I think, the fact that I can hop in my F8 and or even let's just argue an Arrow.
Yeah.
I can hop on my Arrow at New Babbage and go to Crusader without needing fuel to stop anywhere in the way is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah. I agree. Let's see here. Okay. So real quick, everyone. Couple last things before we wrap up tonight. Been absolutely incredible. Thank you for all the follows, the subscriptions. I really appreciate it. I know a number of you went to the coffee link I just posted in chat. A number of you went there and have donated towards the STARJUMP GPU for further production. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Again, only do that if you can. If you're able, do not do it if you're strapped. Plus IAE's coming up. You got to have money to buy ships. What are you doing? The Gleam link is in chat there. Make sure you share that with your friends. There is going to be an additional way to enter that. I am going to make a post on Twitter that has the giveaway link, and one of the ways to enter will be to repost that. So there'll actually even be more ways to enter that. I just couldn't set that up before we went to stream, but I'm going to do it right as this stream ends. So be on the lookout for that, okay? So after about 10 minutes after the stream ends, you're going to be able to go back to the Gleam link, and there should be an option there to repost a post on X, and when you repost it, you will get an additional entry, okay? So that being said, everyone, we're going to look for someone to raid tonight. I think I know who we're going to raid. We're going to raid someone that raided me not too long ago. I want you to all stick around, especially on Twitch. Stick around. Because I would like to give this person a little bit of that STARJUMP love. YouTube, y'all were absolutely crazy tonight with the turnout. Absolutely incredible. Really appreciate it. We had C Daddy CIG in chat. C Daddy, salute to you, buddy. Appreciate you. On Saturday, I'm going to be doing my Lost Concepts of Star Citizen. Make sure you come in for that episode. Might have a giveaway for that. But that being said, Art, I appreciate you joining me tonight. It's been fun talking about the Perseus. Big news, or it's going to be an exciting IAE. It was big news drop today for IAE, and I think the excitement engine is starting to get pretty. It's starting. We're officially starting. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get this raid started. Tonight on Twitch, we are raiding Mr. Photog. He raided me once before. I want to return some of the love, so please stick around. Give him some of that STARJUMP love. Hit follow, all that kind of stuff on his channel. I really appreciate all of you. Have a good rest of your night. I look to see you all on Saturday, where we're going to talk about more stuff, and it's going to be a lot of fun, okay? Don't forget to get in on that Perseus giveaway. Appreciate all of you. Have a good night. Salute.
Good night, everybody.